So I'm finally getting back to work on the Tesla coil, and it's been sitting untouched for way too long. So pulled it back out, cleared off some space on my bench, and started work on this thing again. So I figured it was time to finally mount all of the stuff. The two big capacitors, the little capacitor here, and there's another one there. Get everything kind of tightened down. And so I just have these temporary labels here just so I can keep things straight while I'm looking at the print. Because I'm at the point to where, I made several circuits, like this one, and the capacitor circuit and a few other things, and I got the components, but it's to the point, I'm at the point now to where I need to attach and connect everything. And it's kind of, in my opinion, the hardest part, but at the same time kind of the easiest part. The easiest part in the fact that I can do it however I want to. The hardest part is because I can do it however I want to. There's probably countless ways to do it, and I want to make sure I do it the best way. My first thought was to use cables like this, because I have a few of these that was salvaged from old equipment. Actually, the same equipment a lot of the stuff came from that my work was throwing out. So my first thought was to use some of these and, attach them and stuff, and it would have been easy, I guess, but I kind of like the look and the thought of just using bus bars. And I think, these would be fine, but I think they would have looked a little too messy. I'm trying to build this so that it looks aesthetically pleasing and functions and would be easy to work on for future maintenance. And I'm not at this point 100% sure if I'm going to end up keeping this or selling this. Part of me wants to keep it, part of me wants to sell it. I'm sure my other half of me wants me to sell it. I don't know. So I want it to look nice. I don't want it to look janky or cobbled together, if that makes any sense. I like the look of the bus bars. I'm using old bus bar material, which makes perfect sense. I've got several of these large copper plates that were bus bar material stuff. So I'm cutting pieces out of that. And as you can see, I have one left here to put in. So basically what I do is I just start with a piece of cardboard and I'll cut a cardboard template. So this one, get these bolts out of here. This one's going to connect in like that. And so once I get a cardboard template to fit, I trace it onto a piece of the copper. I cut the copper out and I start bending it to shape. This is just kind of its pre-cut bent form. It's a little bit bigger than it needs to be. So I've marked here where I'm going to trim off the excess. And it's got this white insulation material that's stuck to it, and the only way I can find to get that off is by sanding. And so I have to trim this back to shape a little bit better, pick up the holes here where it's going to go to the capacitor there, pick up the hole here where it goes to the transistor here, and another hole here where it goes to this capacitor hiding under here. And that will then set in there kind of like that. It needs a little bit of fine tuning and reforming, but that's where that'll go. So let me get this thing a little bit further along, and we'll get that mounted in place, and then we can work on the other stuff that's going to go on here. So yeah, I apologize, I'm not showing cutting the parts. It's just cutting metal on a bandsaw. You've seen cutting and drilling and filing before, I'm sure. So yeah, I'm not showing all of that, but yeah, let me get this to better shape and some holes drilled and get it bolted in place, and then we'll get back to you here in a minute. All right, here's that piece all cleaned up and ready to go in. And again, I just labeled those because that's what they're labeled under print, so it just kind of helps me keep stuff straight while I'm connecting stuff. And but this one will go here. And then one on top of the transistor. And then there's one on this capacitor that you can't really see. It's a big block capacitor. It goes under there with a couple of tabs on it. So that gets bolted into that bar as well. It's a little bit close. Ooh, that's not good. It's a little bit close to my coil there, which, yeah. Once it goes in, it'll clear it. It's just clearing that without damaging that coil. There it goes. And there is some space in there. What I might do is slot that hole so that bolt can go over a little bit. That would probably be a good idea. Let me do that. So apparently I wasn't recording, so you missed all the excitement of me putting that piece back on. I did replace the hardware here and here with bolts that had smaller heads, so they were not so close to the coil there. And in a little bit, I'll move the camera around. I'll take it off the mount and show you different angles so you can see the parts better. And again, just in case you don't remember from one of the previous videos, I am using two IGBTs, and the print calls for one, but the one they call for is like a dual unit, a dual IGBT. And so it's one thing with two in it. And so if you look at that, what that looks like on the schematic, I'm probably not supposed to show you because you have to pay for it. But so they have C1 and E2 and then C2 and E1. So that's what I basically have with the two separate ones. I have C1, E2, and then this is E1 and C2 that are now connected together, and that'll go out to, let's see, that one goes out to the capacitor bank, and so yeah. And one other thing about using bus bars like this, the way I'm doing it, you really got to be careful that everything lines up properly. Like, you don't want to tighten that bolt and have it pull and put a strain on this one. So you got to make sure your measurements and bends are correct. You know, if you had to, I guess you could slot a hole to give more clearance or whatever. That would be better than putting a strain on one of the connectors. All right, now I will be using some cables because this circuit board will get mounted about here somewhere. And there will be 3 cables coming off of here. They connect to here. Yes, I know that's ugly, but it's going to work perfectly fine. So those cables connect here, and one of them will connect to the capacitor here. Another one will connect to that center point here, and then another one will connect to that capacitor right over here. And so I will be using short lengths of cable for that. And these 3 lines here go to this block here. This is the rectifier, and you're only using 3 of the 4 legs. I guess they're using it as like a half wave rectifier, I guess. So those will plug in there. And one other thing, I need to contact Eastern Voltage. This capacitor down here on the print is labeled as C4. I ordered the part number that they call for. There's a list of part numbers there. So I ordered the correct part number. But the value on the side says 0.1 big MF, and on the print it's 0.1 UF. And so, you know, 1/10 of a microfarad versus 1/10 of a mother farad. I don't know. I'm assuming the part number is correct. I'm assuming it's a typo with the value written on the print. So I'll verify that with them at Eastern Voltage just to make sure. And so what I need to do now is put in some way of attaching this and the capacitor bank and the cooling fan all stacked on top of each other. And the way I decided to do that was by installing threaded rods. I drilled and tapped a hole here for 1/4 and one here and one here and one here. And you'll notice that there are a few other drilled and tapped holes here and here and here. But that's because this was, those were there for something else, and plus here. So those were part of the existing setup that this heatsink was used for. I could probably use those for something at some point. But I'm going to put in 4 threaded rods. And that should screw down a little bit further. I'll get a wrench on that in a second. And like that. And these might be a little taller than I need. I may cut them down at some point, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll get those screwed in. And then I made 4 of these bars like this, and they can go on like that. They won't be resting on that. And I will use nuts, double nuts, to hold those up wherever I want them, and then that will support that. And notice I put some holes here for mounting, and so those will be up maybe about like so. And so I got to find some nuts to put on there. And then on top of that, we've got the capacitor bank. And I kind of screwed up with this because I did not leave any room for mounting holes, except for I could put one right there in the middle, and I could put one here, but I didn't really put anything. I didn't leave enough room. That's like circuit board design 101, leave space for mounting holes, which I did not. So I could get one on each side in the middle and one on each side on each end. That would probably be plenty. It's more of an annoyance than a game changer. But and then somewhere there, I need to put a cooling fan. I got this nice 120 volt cooling fan. So I think the first step is to get this mounted where I need it to be, and get this plugged in, and also mains power is going to come in here to those two. I don't want to do that yet until this is mounted. That way I can strain relief the cable so I don't damage anything. But hopefully I've got some 1/4 nuts to put on the rods, and I'll get these where I want it, put some standoffs on that, and get that attached. So give me a few minutes, I'll get that done, and we'll show you what that looks like. All right, so here's where we are so far. I've got the circuit board here. And again, this board is bringing the mains power in. It's going to distribute it out here to a transformer to give us 20 volts AC for the controller and power out to the fans. We have those lines going to the rectifier right down there. And we have these 3 lines here. The middle one is going back and around and back down to here. I don't know if we're going to see it or not, but it's like right back in there. So it goes around and in. I thought that would look better and having it come out and around, but it goes to that point here. That is the center tap to the 2 capacitors. This one comes out and around and ties into the other side of the capacitor there. This one does the same thing around to that capacitor here. So those are all fastened final. And we got a little capacitor. Well, it's little, but it's about the size of 2 or 3 9-volt batteries stacked on top of each other. But that's tucked down in there. Let me see if I can get a light on that. Yeah, you can see it right down in there. And then we've got that capacitor right there. That just goes to the ground of the heatsink. And I went ahead and put this cable on. That goes again to that common point between the 2 big capacitors right there. And that's going to go to one side of the primary. And this one, that tap off here, goes to the capacitor bank there, and then through the current sensor, or the feedback sensor, and then to the other side of the primary. So the next step is I want to mount the capacitor bank. So I cut this piece of plexiglass. That will go here. And I debated about what material to use for this. And obviously I went with plexiglass. And that is about 1/4 inch thick. It should be perfectly fine. But I do have some more of these aluminum straps like that. I will probably put one under it here on each end, just because I had to cut the hole out for the cooling airflow to go through. And so it's kind of thin right here. So I'll probably put 2 of those aluminum straps, one here and then one on the back side underneath of the plexiglass, just to give some support to that. But on top of that plexiglass will go the capacitor bank right there. So that bus bar will come up to here, and then the other side of that will loop around with an 8-gauge cable and will go through that guy. It probably won't mount there, mainly because it doesn't really fit. So I need to, I didn't plan that very well. If I would have shoved that over, then there would have been a room to mount that right next to it and then have a cooling fan over. But I kind of was trying to make it somewhat symmetrical, and yeah, it could have been better. But I think what I'll do is make a bracket to mount this down here, so it'll be kind of along the side. And I could hang it from the bottom like that, but I don't want to do that, just in case. Stay, come on. Just in case those 3D printed tabs fail, which they shouldn't, but just in case they do, I don't want it to fall. As much as I can, I try to, when I build things, I try to support stuff, not hang stuff. So I want it supported on a mount, not hanging from the bottom of a mount. That way, in case something fails, it doesn't just fall. So this will more than likely get mounted somehow right down here. And so the 8-gauge cable here will loop around to the bottom and then through it and then up to the primary coil. That's the plan. So this will have to be figured out later. For the cooling fan, I cut out an aluminum bracket, and that will go, if I can do that plus hold the camera, here. And of course I'll need some nuts on here to, I'll need some nuts here to hold it in place, which obviously I don't have yet. I mean, I have them, I just didn't put them on yet. And that will go, come on. Sorry about the poor camera work here. But that will go there, thereabouts. And the cooling fan will sit on it like that. So that's what it's looking like so far. It looks kind of tall. I mean, I could scooch all that stuff down a little bit. Not much, but I can scooch it down a little bit. But that's where I'm at so far. I still need to figure out the mounting holes to secure the capacitor bank to the plexiglass. And that shouldn't be too bad though. But that's what it's looking like so far. That's where I'm at. I'm going to end the video here because I don't want this to be a long video. I just wanted it to be a quick update to show you where I'm at, what it's looking like so far. In the next video, this part will be all finalized, you know, secured, mounted, and hopefully that thing right there mounted somewhere here. And so this part should be done at the beginning of the next video, but it's not a lot of work. It's just putting in some hardware is all it is. And I want to get this video out sooner than later. So in the next video, as I said, this part will be done. I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself. But in the next video, I need to make the main frame that holds all of that, that the main coil sits on top of. So the plexiglass base that holds the primary coil that sits up here, that is 16 inches square. This is about 11 by 10 or 11 by or something like that. It's about 11 inches square, give or take a little bit. So I need to make a cage or a box that is 16 inches cubed, and that will sit in it, and then the coil will sit on top, and I'll have some caster wheels on the bottom so I can roll it around. So the final thing when it's done will be a 16-inch cube with about an 18-inch coil sticking off the top of that. And that's it. So like I said, I'm going to stop rambling here so I can edit the video and get it out. And hopefully this won't be a 30-minute video like I typically do, because despite what it seems like, I really don't like putting out 30-minute videos. And I'm pretty good at putting videos out that are twice as long as they really need to be. So anyways, until next time, as always, thanks for watching.